Tim, great to have you on the show. In watching your videos and everything you do, I don't know how many movements and movement practices you've tried, but it has to be just a ridiculous number. Tell me a little bit about your backstory of sport and movement and
Yeah.
just how you got into this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. When I saw the request come through on Instagram, I thought, yeah, this is the guy I follow that I really like your posts. I think you really break down a lot of things coming from the mixture from the athletics. And I didn't really even realize how much you were aware of kind of Weck method and David Weck stuff. And then even we talked about breakdancing briefly before coming on here. So thanks for having me on. My basic background as a kid in England, I played football or soccer, like most of my childhood. From 8 to 18, I played for a Saturday league team. When I was a But when I was about 10 or 11, I remember watching like music videos on MTV. I think it was like Bomb Funk MC's Freestyler and seeing breakdancers, or anytime gymnastics would come on TV in the Olympics, I'd be like just so amazed and want to watch that. I remember spinning on my knee to like Billie Jean when I was like 6 years old or something like that on the carpet. You could get a really good, just on one kneecap, you can spin really fast. And then I taught myself to walk on my hands randomly. I think when I was about 10, I used to walk from the kitchen door down the hallway and I'd get a tape measure. My dad's tape measure was nearby and I'd see how far
Nice.
can I walk. And I'd try and beat it every time I'd go out. And then eventually I got all the way from the kitchen to the living room down the corridor. And then eventually I got to there and in the living room and around the table, the dining table, and then out. And I was like, wow, like I just loved moving on my hands. And there was no real form. It was like a CrossFit walk on your hands with your legs kind of scooped over the top. And then I found a breakdancing class locally when I was about 13. There was no gymnastics nearby. I asked my parents to go, but there was no classes nearby. I found a breakdance class when I was about 13, so I went to that, and that just blew me away. And so for the next 5, 6 years, I just loved that, fell in love with that for like 3 or 4 years. And I still continued to do it, but then I discovered parkour. I think I was 17, 18, working part-time at McDonald's, part-time at college. Um, well, full-time at college. In the evenings, occasionally I'd work at McDonald's. And I remember on my break, there was this advert for this TV documentary called Jump Britain, and it was about parkour. And I made sure I was on my lunch break and it was on TV, and I would turn it off because I'd recorded it at home and I didn't want to ruin it. So I remember that night going home and watching it. And I was like, wow, it just seemed like 3D breakdancing, because breakdancing is like all this understanding of coordination, of kinesthetic awareness, and all these weird positions and control and application of power and rhythm. But with multiple dimensions, then you're not just doing it on one flat surface. And at that point, I kind of was starting to get a bit bored of breakdancing. I think it might be a bit of my own lack of awareness of progression with breakdancing, because it's about moves and you have to really commit to practicing moves over and over. And it's skill development, right? That takes real, and you have to develop, it's not just skill, it's strength as well. So if you don't have the strength and the flexibility, like breakdancing really is one of the greatest expressions of human movement, like going. Um, and at that age, I wasn't really taught discipline. I didn't have that much commitment, but also freerunning just seemed like this new, I don't even want to call it shiny object, because that's kind of a negative term these days, shiny object syndrome. But it was like this new practice that I could go out and do and explore my environment. And it just got me outside, jumping on walls. And I progressed at that pretty quickly from like 17, 18. I think I started when I was about 17. And then by 18, I was even started to do professional work with it. And 19, I went on and won, was it 19 or 20? 2012. No, so I would have been 24 at that point. Okay, so I did it professionally as like work for like commercials for Mercedes, Sainsbury's, random jobs all over the world, because parkour was kind of hitting that first growth boom. And then in 2012, I won the parkour. It was actually 2010 now, I'm thinking. But anyway, around that time, I won the World Freerunning Championships. It was the second time it ever ran. The first year I came second, the year after I managed to win it. And so that was like sparked a whole new chapter of my life. Got notoriety from that. YouTube was just starting to grow. I was making YouTube content. Uh, Great. And then over the next few years, I started to kind of get to grow out of it a bit. My body wasn't feeling as good. I wasn't progressing as much. I was kind of getting bored of it the same way I kind of got bored of breakdancing. With breakdancing, I kind of got bored of the music and the same old things. With that, I started to get bored of the same training spots. When you do things for a career as well, it changes the passion for it. It stopped being as pure, and body didn't feel as good. So then I kind of, that's a whole nother chapter. I kind of moved into like this vegan arc for my life. And then anyway, a few years throughout that, I discovered like looking at biomechanics. I was throughout the whole time, I guess from when I started to end doing parkour around 2017, 2018, 2019, I was doing yoga, Pilates, Alexandra technique. I was like experimenting with all these different practices that I'd come across, Feldenkrais, just short stints in each of them that people had talked about. And then I discovered functional patterns, and that kind of sent me on that new age biomechanics rabbit hole. And then on from there to, and I don't know how much you want to dig into things that I've just shared there, but and then into Weck Method, Knees Over Toes guy. Who's the other guy? Chongji, is it Chongji? No.
Yeah, hyperarch, like hyperarch.
Hyperarch, Secrets of Athleticism. I did a good stint of that kind of training. So I've explored a lot of the old, like I've done 10 years or so of yoga, and then I've done like, yeah, 7 or 8 years of the new age biomechanical practices, Weck Method and everything.
Yeah, I like the term new age biomechanical practice. Actually, I will remember that, because it is kind of interesting how, yeah, you have like on one end you have fundamental, like this is the big rocks, and then as soon as you foray into anything outside of that, it's an interesting world. But it is it's a thing where you mentioned as soon as you said vegan, you had a vegan stint. I was thinking to myself, well, what movement practices were you into at that point? And then you had mentioned yoga, and I was like, that makes perfect sense. Just with, I think a lot of times our external environment kind of plays a big role in those things that, that we are doing from a movement practice perspective. And, occasionally you get the vegan powerlifter, very, very rare. Maybe it's bodybuilder more. I don't even know. Powerlifter, I don't even know. But I wouldn't say, the proportion of people at the Pilates and yoga studio that are, that carry that general life philosophy are very high, but the proportion in the powerlifting gym is going to be extremely low. And I always find that interesting.
Yeah. And I think an interesting point to note was I kind of made a decision in my training around that point that I would never train through a niggle. Like I wouldn't just ignore a niggle, like not just an injury, but like a little tweak. I wouldn't go, how people have injuries they start as niggles and they continue to train through it. They ignore their body. They keep on running. They keep on lifting, and their elbow gets worse. And eventually, they can't train, and they have to have 6 months out because they ignored the little sign. And so I made a decision, and now I've revisited that whole theory. But I made a decision to like always try and work on solving that and not just pushing through it. When you're warm, I feel fine, but then when I cool down, I limp even more. I didn't want to have that. That was kind of happening, so I started to go, right, let me just try and solve every niggle and issue in my body. And that led me to things like yoga, because you think, well, it's just because I'm tight, so I need to get more flexible. It doesn't work just like that. It's not as simple as that, right? But so that was kind of a decision I made then, and then took me, 7 or 8 years to have another kind of theory on that of like, no, you can have injuries and you can train, and it doesn't even make the injuries worse sometimes, as long as, I don't know, there's just a load of, it's not black and white as we like think,
Yeah. Something you said, Tim, with right after kind of the yoga and Pilates, but the Alexander Feldenkrais. And this is where I think people would look at a lot of the, like if you're looking at athletic performance, and at that being more the, like the yang, the more masculine side, like the more, a very energetic, power. And a lot of times if we look at anything on the other side is, well, that couldn't help me in my sport. That's too weak or soft. And one of the things that I really, and I've only done a little bit of work with an actual, like Alexander technique was the one I've done, and I've read some Feldenkrais work, but that, a person who reminds me of that a lot is another Tim Anderson with Original Strength. And like just going through things slowly enough that you have time to make connections. One of the things that I do occasionally, because I would never take the time to do this if not, is I have a 19-month-old girl, and sometimes, when she doesn't like to go to sleep, and so I'll go in her room when it's all dark, and I'll sing to her when she's in her crib, and I'll lie on the ground to do it. But that's also my time while I'm singing, is I'll do like different like supine cross connects lying on my back. Like last night I was doing an extreme slow like supine cross connect, so on my back, and trying to slowly connect like my drive knee to my elbow, but keep the foot on the wall. And then I was doing some rolls, and I was like, this is a way different experience of doing that versus, let's just say, it's a football team and everything's on the whistle, like you're doing functional range. It's like blow the whistle, get to this position, blow the whistle, get to this position. And so I can't say I'm an expert. I've done one Alexander class or experience with a practitioner. It was amazing, honestly. But it was just enough to give me that thought of how people move from a quality perspective is way, way more than usually we just think, oh, well, just do this thing, do this cue, do this technique. But it's more, a lot of it is spending time in that like softer or being more
Yeah.
mindful, at least just taking time to be more mindful of actually what's going on. And I'm sure that's where like things like rope flow and other practices could fit in, rolling, like Tim Anderson stuff and all the rolling and those kind of things.
Yep.
So I'm sure that fits in. I was going to ask you, connections between some of the softer methods and where you've gone now with the rope flow piece.
Yeah. Well, I think on that, I really like Tim Anderson's work as well, and I think he has a lot of Feldenkrais inspiration, I think, going in with his. I think exactly like you said, I made a video like 5 years ago or more called Baby Conditioning. And it was basically what you just said, where I was lying on the ground, moving slowly and just trying to feel all the different connections happening within my body and becoming sensitive to that. And I think, to use a phrase from Tim Anderson, it's about getting into all the nooks and crannies of the body and exploring all that kind of, to use the Ido Portal quote, no man's land. Like he always says, go into no man's land. It's not just a precipice, isn't just this, right? It's like exploring these different ranges and where is smooth and where does my breath suddenly tighten up? Where do I feel my whole body has to activate to hold this position because I'm actually weak in that position? And so working through the yin and the yang is what I think any athlete kind of needs to be at absolute prime, like their prime self. As an example, it was 30-year anniversary of Jonathan Edwards'
Yeah.
triple jump world record, right? No one's beaten his triple jump world record. And what I always notice about Jonathan Edwards is there's a softness to him. There's almost a campness. You know what camp means?
No.
How do I put it? Slightly gay. I don't know if that's not the right term, but there's like a effeminate. Maybe effeminate's a nicer way to put it. And I think there's something in that men that are too emotionally repressed and too stiff and they have stiff joints and stiff everything, can't access full ranges of motion, can't access full expression of muscle. Jonathan Edwards wasn't gay. I'm not saying it's to do with sexuality, but generally in society, athletes become more emotionally repressed, and yet the ones that are able to stay a bit softer and more open-hearted have more flexibility and range of motion. Because I think that this is what I came to discover, is there's a huge tie-in with emotions, with that side of life and our body's capacity. And you can't just solve physical things through physical practices. We can work emotionally and solve physical issues. There's always people have a stressful job, their hair falls out, their nails fall out, or their skin's bad. They quit the job, things heal up. Stress is an emotional, almost a repressed thing to what's going on in my life, and it creates the body as like the spokes popping off the tire or the nuts and bolts coming off, right? So looking at that as an example, 30 years and no one's beat that. And you look at how his mobility through his hips, his strength, his lightness on his feet, and he seems like he was raised in a very loving household. And that aspect alone is like, can help someone to be themselves rather than in a lot of martial arts and fighting. There's a lot of aggression, a lot of trying to prove yourself, competition, and it just creates limitations on someone's athletic expression. And not to get too far into it, but even that competition itself, I have a big, questions about as a society, how much we put people on pedestals versus just a good amateur is a much happier person generally than like the top end professional kind of thing. Like there's all this aspects, but I'll just throw a few things out there. We can dive into anything you want.
Yeah, no, you unloaded a lot there, and it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, I think as soon as you get kind of what I mentioned, kind of the fundamental approach to sport and athletics is very much force, positions, angles, and a lot more of
Mm,
that. As soon as you get
mm,
into your emotional state starts to influence how you move. It's like, whoa, that's a hard, that's a hard turn into, new age movement land. But it is
mm,
funny. I mean, I've a fair number of books and on that type of topic, and you see it. I was talking about this with Lawrence Van Lingen,
mm,
is what we would running coach, and a lot of
I know Lawrence. Yeah.
yeah, and he was saying, I think it was South Africa, spending time there, like these runners who are incredibly fluid. It's not because someone taught them how to be fluid. It's a product of the culture. It's a product of just kind of that. Or maybe a good example would be Liz Gleadle, javelin thrower, talked about spending time in the Caribbean and just watching people dance there. And that shows up in how you move outside of that dance as well, like the body expression and the lack of tension. And something I
Mm.
notice, to your point with the idea of, I guess, like, you could be very tense in certain areas and have no idea, would be, I find a lot of athletes when you do anything overhead. So if you're doing like a halo with, be it a kettlebell, a water
Yeah.
bag type thing, yeah, a plate, whatever, medicine ball. A lot of people, as soon as that weight or implement, whatever it is, goes overhead, there's a lot of tension that goes through the face, the jaw, the breathing, and they have no idea. The athlete often has
Yeah.
no idea. And I've found in like basketball, just playing pickup, and I'll try to get to the piece with competition soon because I do
Mm.
think that's an interesting discussion point. I've got to the point where I notice if I'm playing and I miss like an easy shot, it's like, oh, I should have made that, or like a layup. I start to connect like that. I'll tense parts of my body up, like my face and my neck up in the like I'm driving through the lane, and like there's that effort and there's that people guarding you, and then that tension comes up through the neck and up into the jaw. And
Mm.
I think it's a little bit more multifactorial than that, but I think that's the symptom of the mental process, And so
100%.
to be able to take some time, and the thing is the best athletes that we watch, star athletes, soccer, football, basketball, whatever.
The most
I,
relaxed.
yes, I think a lot of them they're relaxed, but we take that for granted. We just assume they're just good. They just put the ball in the basket, and then, again,
We miss that part of it.
yeah,
Yep.
multifactorial, a lot of things going on. But I do think that's something that if you look at their mind and emotions, like they're so comfortable in their environment that
Exactly.
that's just they're playing in their environment.
Mm.
It's more play to them than it would be to you or I. And I think
Yeah.
being part of that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think when you relax, things happen slower, right? When you're so anxious about how and more like you can be a player who seriously wants to win, but not be overly serious in the moment. Because it's like even Ronaldo, someone like him, Cristiano Ronaldo, who's an amazing footballer, is a very serious player, but at the same time, he's able to relax enough to focus and have, there's all you could go into conversations about belief and everything like that, but it's like your example there where you feel like it's a shot you should make, but then you feel yourself tense up. It's like how much pressure internally did you put on yourself, or how much after the fact that you miss it do you beat yourself up for not missing it, or just see it as another there's just that aspect of sports. It's just there are sports psychologists, but there's many different directions you could go. If I could make one tangent that I just well on this subject, but I gave advice to a friend once who said, what would you, if you were a sports psychologist, what would you say? And this, for many people, they might disagree or might go over the head, but if someone was going into an event, I would tell them to imagine themselves losing the event and experiencing losing the event and going through the emotions of losing the event
Yes.
before, not trying to visualize winning, visualize all this perfect outcome. You can do that as well, but I think there's more benefit to be had from going through losing. So express it, like if you can feel the feelings of that and deal with that and release that from your system, and then I feel like it's been less of a likely outcome because you've already dealt with that and you're not even afraid of that. And I think that's a twist on what a lot of people are kind of going into, this power of belief, positive mindset. I don't think it's as clear cut as just only focus on the positive. It's like deal with the negative before it happens, and it's less likely to happen. That's something I strongly believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just to go with that, recently, and this is kind of the power. It's funny, like with AI. Recently I had a high jumper I was working with who really, really struggled with missing. And that's what interesting. Coaching high jump is interesting because it is a movement practice that either you make the bar or you do not. There's a success or a failure that's also tangible by something
It's
falling.
not like long jump where it's
Exactly.
you're always going to make it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like there's that pass fail kind of thing with it. And so one of the things I asked ChatGPT, I was like, can you make me a checklist for someone who struggles with missing? And I've had multiple athletes like this. I wish I could go back in time. I had an athlete
Hmm.
when I was coaching at age 27 that if he missed once and then twice for sure, he would shut down. He would sit there on the mat. You could tell he was just consumed with like all these different emotions, anger, like dude, he would freeze. And so I've had athletes in the past as well who the emotions would come up and paralyze them. And anyways, in the checklist that Chat GPT made for me, and I made some adjustments too. I went through, I was like, okay, I like this, I don't like this. But it's like I'm not a sports psychologist. Like that's not my main training, but I've worked with enough athletes that I see these trends show up. And anyways, one of the things in the checklist that it put out was to normalize missing,
Mm.
like to make that this is normal, this is okay, like,
Yeah.
and to visualize how you'll respond to that. Because the thing with high jump as well is, look, at some point you're gonna miss. Like you're not just gonna keep making.
Every single meet.
Yeah,
Yeah. Every
and
single
the
meet.
bar is like 12 feet and I haven't missed yet. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna find your limit and eventually that bar will fall off, you know? And
Mm.
so, but yeah, that's one of those things where I think that's really important, especially for people who are very judgmental on themselves, personalities.
Yes,
I am
exactly.
a big time. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I've thrown the bar across the high jump apron, not in the competition, but in practice. Like I would sit there and not leave till I could make a certain height. And it's funny because I nowadays, I would contrast that to playing a game of basketball because it's interesting. Like if you go and you high jump and every day you just get ticked off at yourself and you miss and you have to be there till you make it, like you can improve. But I found that would burn out my nervous system kind of quick. I would hit
Yeah.
ceilings that were very hard to pass because it was just such a strain to get there. And there was some other things in those time periods. I think I could have done better with some other general preparation pieces. Um,
Mm.
but then just like something like just playing basketball and then you do a few dunks in between games. There's something that's different to that because it's a lot of just
But
play.
that's not in the Karate Kid montage. That's not the Rocky montage. You've got to keep persisting through the pain. No,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
no,
I think there's a little bit of everything, you know?
no. I agree. No, I'm saying I completely agree with your approach there. Like I think we overemphasize. I don't know. It's a weird like the persistence. Persistence works in certain fields, but there's also like just the Goldilocks zone of progress, right? The Goldilocks zone of test your limit, put in a few efforts, but don't go to the point where you're like completely dismantling any kind of self-belief from failing so much and straining yourself. And like you said, central nervous system is such an overlooked part of training. Is like how often I notice I'm overtraining because I can be stuck in sympathetic, and I'm like, right, I need a day off, and I need to find a moment in the day where I have a nap, and then I'll drop into parasympathetic, and then I'm ready to go with some hard training again. But the frying the central nervous system is a big one from just pushing it too hard too frequently. And sorry, you can go back to
Oh yeah.
your point.
Yeah, I would imagine too. I was gonna say I would think in parkour, like, you know, you have a lot of freedom and joy, but I would imagine if you try one jump over and over and over and over again and it's really emotionally intense, like there's a high risk potential, I would think that could burn you out quite a bit too, versus like a day where it's maybe just messing around, exploring different things. You have
So
any with that?
yeah, I think that's a great question, and I've actually always I've thought about this often, is how different my parkour training was from any other practices you see,
Mm.
because there's no coach,
Yeah.
there's no set time limit. You don't go from 7 to 8 in the evening. You go whenever you want. You go. It's more like a skate, when skaters go out, but yet it is, and that's still a physical practice, but it's still a very biomechanically like purposeful practice. Parkour, it's like unbelievable, and you go when you're ready, you have a few attempts, you always every effort is fully recovered. Like every effort's fully recovered. It's not a hit exercise, it's not, it's you're fully recovered, you put everything into it, you're fully recovered, you put everything in it. And certainly there are athletes out there who will try something 30 times until they get it. I wasn't one of them, right? I'd give it 5 or 7 attempts and then move on. And then next session you come back and you might hit it first try. Like that's just how it works often, right? You put in you feed the man and you pay the man, and then you go away and you come back and your brain and your body works on it overnight, and you come back 2 or 3 days later when you're recovered. And it happens like that. It happens with video games. It happens with all sorts of things we notice. With rope flow, right? You're learning a move, a pattern. You can't get it. Next day you pick up and it just clicks. Right.
Athletic performance is built on a spectrum of training methods. from high velocity skills to power training to strength work. And on one end of that spectrum, on that strength end, you have the most targeted work in the form of machines. And this is part of the reason that so many top speed and strength coaches have their favorite machines to deliver that targeted stimulus. For decades, Hammer Strength has been a top provider of reliable, effective machines that are trusted by coaches and athletes worldwide. They fit seamlessly into that total performance program, delivering that targeted strength stimulus. When it comes to your machine-based strength training needs, think Hammer Strength. Yeah, I was just going to say to that point, I'm starting to see how I learn it show up in multiple areas. And I think,
Mm.
yeah, that equation of a sports skill with learning is so key, even if it's like a more explosive skill, like even like sprinting, very explosive. We tend to equate that only with power and strength and positional technique and not very much with learning. And obviously there's a lot more complex techniques out there without question, but I find, and with breakdancing as well, that's one of my biggest things with, I've noticed it's very similar how I do things with like a breakdance move, which I'm not, I have not done a lot of those moves in a very long time. High school, I was obsessed. I remember the first, like I got this VHS tape back when those existed, and it was the coolest thing I had ever seen. This was like 2001, 2002. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Was that like the World B-Boy Championships or something from
They
that
had
era?
videos from it, and I would just watch it over and over again. And of course, this is when I was obsessed with jumping high and dunking and sprinting and track were my main passions. But that was my
Mm.
movement outlet. That was like the yin, if you will. Even though power moves
Mm.
were my big thing,
Yeah.
power. But the funny
Yeah.
thing is, I would say without question that breakdance movement I did made my other items better. I remember there was a period of time when I the basketball practice was going on in the winter and it was just intense. And I remember it was so much I usually lifted weights in my basement in the evening a little bit, not like crazy, like do a set or two at 10 of like a barbell step up and a few other things. But I didn't even do that. But I did occasionally mess around with some breakdance moves still at that point. And I had been doing a lot. And there were some things on the court we were doing that were good as well. But I jumped my highest I ever had in high school, like coming off of like a lot of breakdance movement, take a little taper off the weights. We're doing a lot of speed in practice. And I think selling with the whip of some of those moves kind of helped me and just that overall kind of movement. Again, I don't think just because if you took a track triple jumper or long jump, I don't think, having breakdance, they're not going to breakdance their way to being amazing. But I think there was a fundamental, like if you think about the pyramid of movement, there was a block in that pyramid in the base that was really helpful for me. And so, but I find that when I am doing a move, like I could do single leg swipes in high school, self-taught, it came very easily. It just kind of naturally was like, oh yeah, it just felt, and I could feel the whip of my legs coming around. And then I tried it again when I was in my mid to late 30s. I was like, I cannot do this. Like, I feel like if I don't know how, you just have to YouTube it if you're listening, I'm sorry. But I would just feel like I was going to just, for lack of a better word, just eat shit and fall and not have control of myself. And I kind of got this dual realization the other day. I was watching a video on someone's swipe progression and I just realized I just didn't take enough time. And I'll come back to high jump and just straining, or those big jumps and straining, is where what I used to do is I would just put the bar to the high height and just strain and try. To me, that's like trying the big power move and not thinking about how you're doing it, not going into the nuance. And so now I found what I did. Well, one, I did some rope flow activities before, and I think that just primed my brain for learning. Like I did that pivot step I learned from you, and just like learning something new, it kind of sets off a chain reaction, I think sometimes. And then I also just paused in the difficult position. I was watching an athlete learn the swipe, and he would just pause for an extended time in that critical, difficult position, which for me is kind of like a side plank in the air. And
Yep.
Tim Anderson does these air rolls, he calls them, like rolls, which is kind of like that. And so I would just pause there and hold it and just feel safe and comfortable in that position.
Yeah.
And just really worked around that a lot. And then I got it. Like I worked on this for 4 or 5 years, and then I was like, I remember what this feels like. This is amazing. And but I noticed when I play guitar, and I'm not an expert guitar, I dabble. Like I'm a dabbler. Like
Mhm.
I don't have time to be really good at a lot of things. But I found like in learning a piece, I'll hit this wall where like I'm learning and I'm going through, and I just can't get it. And then I feel myself getting frustrated. I feel my willpower draining and like my
Mhm.
mild
Mm.
ADD creeping in and just want to go do something else. But I'll find instead of doing that, it's like, well, I'll just play it really, really, really slow. Like I'm going to
Yep.
play it at quarter speed. And then I'll do a quarter speed for a while. And you get that win because you did it at quarter speed and you did it. And then it's like, okay, well, I can do it. I'll do it half speed, and I got that. And then I'll go to full, and it actually was pretty good. And so it's almost like I've learned it's almost rather than just hitting your head on the wall, it's scaling speeds. It's scaling so you can go get a
Scaling.
win and
Yep.
come back and try again. And it's like being
Yeah.
easier, and it's being better to yourself in some ways, you know.
Yes, it's loving to yourself. It's
Yeah,
recognizing what is my capacity now and how can I regress to put myself in the middle of the Goldilocks zone, right? Because you've got the learning when it's too difficult and when it's too easy, and you've got the Goldilocks zone when you progress and it's enjoyable and you're like challenged but not too challenged. And it's like half of that is being humble enough with yourself and modest enough, like, oh, thumbs up, like this is where my level is for this section. How can I regress it? And that is all like even the baby conditioning or the Feldenkrais stuff is like on the floor feeling like, how am I going to jump and overtake and dunk and everything at full speed and not get injuries if I can't even like lift my arm when I'm lying on the floor and feel like tension suddenly lifted and like, so yeah, using that regression is an incredible tool, but you have to be really your own coach, right? Because it's hard for someone else to always recognize that for you, and but you're recognizing it in yourself. You said you feel the ADD creep in, you feel all these different things. And onto the other point you mentioned was whip. And I thought you mentioned that twice, right? From breakdancing, they it is like the peak expression. And there's one other sport that is like a peak expression of human movement. There's like ballet and things like that. But you know what tricking
oh
is,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like that's like on foot breakdancing because they're on one leg and they swing the other leg through with that momentum and then they wrap up and twist and land back on on hard surfaces on grass, whatever, doing triple spins in the air. Like that level, like if you could give maybe a triple jumper
yeah.
like a year of basic tricking progressions on both legs,
Mhm.
that is going to teach them something about whip and momentum that they might never have got just from drilling triple jump, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that actually because I that makes me think of something I do with high jumpers in the off season. We tend to go through the old techniques in the first few practices, like the straddle or all the stuff people did in the early 1900s in black and white before the Fosbury flop came along. And one of the ways, like the straddle is so it's so much harder than the flop. The flop is like the easiest. I mean, it's still not easy, but like the
Mm,
straddle, it's bewildered me for a while. But in a way, it's kind of like tricking how I teach people to get it because how do I explain this? Like you have to basically like if you're jumping over a bar like a fence and you were I it's funny because all the parkour ways you like the Kongs, I my ADD kicks in. I was like, I just want to go over the fence. Like I don't want to learn
yeah.
stuff. I mean I probably should, but like I think about but I usually have them just kind of in place. It ends up looking like a tricking in place. Like they have to swing their like if you're jumping
Inside leg, like
yeah,
the leg supposed
exactly. Like
yeah.
you imagine a bar's there, like swing your right leg up in the air over an imaginary bar, and then your left leg comes back, kind of like a karate kick or a figure skating pirouette.
Mm.
It has those qualities to it, and kids always they laugh and they have fun doing it. We don't do it all year, but I do think that kind of idea, and that's just things that it's basic enough, right? Like if I tell the whole group, yeah, we're learning full on breakdance moves, I mean, or those things. I think it's good, but I spend a lot of time thinking about, well, what are some very low level modified versions of, okay, if I took all the peak of breakdance and tricking and I tried to put it in a general program for athletes that
Yeah.
it's not, this is very easy, it's manageable, it's going to give you that general feel of that ballistic momentum and
Yep.
athleticism. Yeah, is there anything that comes to mind for you? Because I think about Tim Anderson's air rolls, and I like those. If people could YouTube that video, it's a pretty simple movement, and you can also do it slow. But do you have any thoughts come to mind with those like some base general like I mean anything you would even put in like if a rope flow class showed up and you inserted some of those movements? Do you have any
Yeah, what for high jump specifically or
just I would say just for general movement and athleticism, like things that are low enough level that regardless of what your movement practice is or sport, you
yeah.
could have a basic level of success with some of those things.
I mean, there's things in parkour, like just say you have two curbs on the ground and you're on 2 feet and you jump 2 feet, 2 feet. Like
Oh
Stuff
yeah.
like that, just using momentum, landing in the right position with your weight in the right angle to come again, not overcooking it, reaching out with your feet. Like that's I feel like that's taught so much, but it's still 2 feet, and you can do jump 2 feet, like a hop in the middle and land 2 feet. Pretty basic. Um, yeah, hard for me to say specific. Obviously, I think the figure of eight in rope flow, just like
Yeah.
understanding that weight shift, like we're going side to side, that we're tracing that figure of eight with the spine, that I think can unlock it for a lot of people, and people can feel that as soon as you're accelerating or running uphill, you can notice that like come into play. You can notice it in normal every day, but stairs. When people are hiking and they get tired at the top of the mountain, they naturally
Yeah.
start to put the weight. And as you mentioned at the very beginning, I think about the physics. Like movement is like strength and angles and degrees and like it's that. So that figure of eight is understanding how can I put my biggest center of mass, my ribs of my head, over the thing that I'm about to drive into the ground. So I just think that figure of eight is like absolutely fundamental to get that down.
I like the curb thing you mentioned with the jumps, just because I think, yeah, obviously if I'm
Mm,
setting up like a gym and I have athletes, there's a certain amount of height or to do artificial things, right? Like, could I take
yeah.
my group of athletes or my fitness class out to, I saw a video like you and David in San Diego, David Weck, and you're jumping over like big high railings. Like there's that scalability. But if
Mm,
I found great success. I can't, I don't know how to do the curb, but I'll just set up like plyo boxes and have people
yeah.
bound for box to box.
That's
And it's
great.
awesome. It is better for the general athlete. You could use it for general training and then you get specific with bounding on the flat.
Mm,
But for athletes who are just football and soccer, like the question is, do they really need to learn to bound like a triple jumper? I mean, yeah, it's a good skill, but I find they get a lot more engaged if it's like, it feels kind of like parkour. It's like box to box to box, and maybe
yeah.
they're different height. But then you mentioned if it's like you're jumping from pole to pole, two legs, there's that precision piece. And to me, that's one of those things that parkour is so good is, if people hear precision and balance, they just think it's so yin, it's irrelevant. But I find if you don't have precision, like precision helps the body to tune itself more effectively. Like to me, it's for if I had a group of youth athletes, a more effective plyometric workout for them would be if I had like poles that were 6 inches off the ground or something. Like no
Mm,
one's going to hurt themselves to
yeah.
do that. Like jump from pole to pole, land on 2 feet, stabilize, and they would have fun with it too. Like they would,
Yeah.
that's a blast to them. And yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few different points I want to jump on there. Is that I read an old parkour book on the founders of parkour, and they literally said parkour is two things: it's touch and conditioning, right?
Hmm.
So it's like you need to develop strength, condition strength and power, and then it's touch. It's like how like you've got to be a ninja. If you're loud, that's a lot of wasted energy. The muscles that's going through the joints. If you're quiet, you're controlling it with the muscles. You're soft, you've got control. And there's a phrase I read in an old book, and it just said, "Gentleness is the concomitant to strength."
Hmm.
And that concomitant is a cool word. I think basically means like the supplement to strength, or like the prerequisite supplement to strength. And if you have strength without gentleness, then you're completely limited. Like it's yes, you can rip a heavy weight, but actually applying it, like the best athlete is the strongest with the most control, right? Like
Yes.
generally, like it's going to be it. So if you don't train that gentleness, that touch, you're completely always going to be limited. And parkour for me was my one form of practice that, and on the point that you mentioned, balance, like a big part of my, I go through these rites of passage in my training and in the courses that I teach. And the Swiss ball, the stability ball, was a huge chapter for me because it's a ball, right? And it can go in. It's humans love balls. Football is a ball, or soccer, golf, tennis, ping pong. Like we use balls for all sorts of fun, right? No one ever stands on the ball. Swiss ball is like, this is the ball. It can go 360. I'm on it, right? Where I'm weak, it's gonna find. If I'm not strong in all 360 angles, it's gonna go there, and I'm gonna fall off, right? So it challenges you. It it it's it's like the cure and the cut. It finds the issue and it heals the issue at the same time for within a spectrum. So you're on the ball, you're unstable. Eventually, those shakes after a few sessions, you stop shaking and you're like, I'm in control here. Like it's not gonna have 100% perfect carryover to removing all injuries, but there's definitely some carryover there to stabilizing joints and strengthening people in positions where they feel fragile. just in a static position on the ball. I think there are clues in children who aren't, before they've been trained to be competitive, before they're put through structured robotic linear classes, where children want to you've got 3 kids, right? Do they ever balance on a wall, or are you going to the supermarket or the shopping center and they go, can like hold my hand, I want to walk along this wall, I want to practice this. Like it's in us, like in us hardwired as children. Our own physical development is kind of wired into us to seek these things. We want to climb trees, right? We want to reach and climb the tree. Then we want to walk on a wall. And okay, it's a bit scary, but I want to do it. I feel, I want to challenge myself. And so physical development, physical education, there's a clues in children of what we can feed and develop. But at a certain age, we stop thinking about balance. We just go to the gym and think about hypertrophy. And hypertrophy is so, I mean, it just seems illogical, like to me, not to like, if your goal is to, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, where I want to honor the human body is an amazing thing, and I want to sculpt this thing, and I can be precise about my training and build it to look a certain way. That's cool, but for the most part, it should be strength to body weight like ratio is what we're after, right? It's all about power over or strength over body weight, and so I don't know. Maybe it's my fitness YouTube. I get fed out algorithm of like Mike, Renaissance periodization and Jeff Nippard, and I like these guys. I listen to a lot of what they say, and I agree with a lot of what they say. But often they'll like poo-poo kettlebells, but purely because it's not good for hypertrophy necessarily. But for athleticism, it's incredibly effective, and it's just it's amazing. Like maybe it's because they get way more views than people who are talking about actually. Like, why would you not want to be athletic? Why would you want to be big and bulky and slow and stiff over like athletic? Like no one. If you experience both, if you could flick a switch and experience both, you got to choose being like a tiger every time. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, to me, the trick of, well, I guess you could say sports performance or fitness in general is to see all the, like the bubbles. I look at them as bubbles. It's like, you have your hypertrophy and bodybuilding, you have your power, you have your explosive Olympic lifting and sprinting and all these things and they all give you something, but it's like to find the gift that the thing will give you that's the most relevant for you. Like for me, I don't spend a lot of time doing like isolated stuff, but in the winter when I rock climb, like the weights are there. So I usually spend a little time doing arms, but how I do it now is more, I try to do curls in a way that I'm not straining my neck to do it. Cause that's what I used to do. Everything was just strain and jaw and neck. And it's like, how can I use this muscle building tool just to have a more like, I guess if you mentioned Arnold, like I don't picture Arnold just like straining only his neck when he's doing that. It's like he's got the big, chest, and there's something that's also very confident. And I'm like, well, I'll try to find that for this piece, But like then I'll go throughout. Right now, it's like Sprint City, so it's like it's a little different.
It's all about I think everyone should have a chapter of exploring hypertrophy, and I'm all for using weights and using gym equipment. I love going into a gym, and it's like a laboratory for your body. And I love using assisted machines because you can get really precise about angles and what parts of the body get hit, what joints and what muscles get like. And I love going on a bicep curl and just going really slowly on one arm and like doing the wet coil and like. Really just feeling the tension there and feel it building, getting a pump. I like getting a pump, but it's not like purely with the purpose of building the only goal. It's just like, it's like cyclists or runners with bad ankles almost. Like, although I love cycling, so I don't want to dig at cyclists, but it's like, why would you not, like, running through a mountain is just like the best feeling in my eyes, like as an athlete, like one of the best feelings. There's many different aspects, but like that is incredible when you can run up a mountain and not be out of breath and fly down the other side, and you're out for an hour. It's like, it's so overlooked as a joyous experience as a human. Like that sprinting's great, and like mastering that aspect of it, but then also mastering like there's a term, aerobic deficiency syndrome. I've been digging deeply into Scott Johnston of Evoke Endurance, and I watched this year the 100-mile Western States race, which is a 100-mile race across California. And the guy that won it, Caleb Jones, looked at his coach's training plan that he had for him, and it's interesting to see even the development of that, and the way they talk about aerobic deficiency syndrome and how a lot of athletes, we can be explosive and powerful, but we're aerobically deficient. And so then our nervous system is going to get much more fatigued when we try to do, and even with doing anaerobic work, our nervous system is going to get fatigued because we don't have that aerobic base. And so that should be like an important chapter for everyone on a physical development journey, is to do some aerobic development. It took me years I did parkour and breakdancing. These are all explosive. I didn't want to run. I got into running, and man, the rewards for becoming better at running. And I even see now loads of parkour athletes that were like 5 or 10 years younger than me as I started to leave that community. They're all getting into running now and starting to appreciate the value of that. And so, yeah, I'm just a human that loves physical development, and I'm practicing all the different things and exploring all of the different things. And that's one thing that I've been passionate about lately is working through my own aerobic deficiency syndrome. And I did like a VO2 max test and got my own, I was going to mention it earlier. You talked about slowing things down, finding the position of the movement that you're weak. What do we call this in endurance? This is zone 2 training. That's suddenly like a huge thing now, right? Zone 2 training, not training. We're always trying to train at our maximum heart rate and everything. No, we're going to burn out. Zone 2. Okay, what's my threshold here? So applying zone 2 training to not only endurance, but you can apply it to every other training that you do.
Yeah. That's one of the things where I really, one of the main shifts in my own training and the way I write training is like a sprint workout or sprint week. A lot of times you have like 3 fast or hard days and 3 easy days. And I used to look at it more just kind of like those easy days are more punching the clock. All right, you're going to run this amount of volume or do this amount of general circuits, and then you're fit. And that's good. I mean, I will say I love a feeling I remember from basketball would just be sitting in the car or going to bed after a hard open gym and feeling aerobically, and of course, speed and power and all that stuff, but also aerobically worked, and just lying down and being like, just feeling good, like feeling like your body was fully activated.
Yeah.
And I guess I was like, where am I going with this? My mind's kind of wandering, but let's see, strength. I have to rewind now, Tim. I might.
Sorry, I threw about 3 different things out in it.
Yeah. Oh, I know where I'm going with this. Okay. So I program those now a lot of times, like akin to what you mentioned with zone 2. It's more like, okay, here's the sprint distance and here's the time. How easy can I make this? How much fun can I have exploring different ways to run this? What imagery and visualizations can I use that will teach me something about how my body works? So
I like that.
It's like and I think it has to become that way in a sense, because as you gain mastery in something, it's not just putting the time in and getting the physical adaptation. There's also the way you experience and process that skill. And so for me, part of the joy of it is making something simple like running. Like, I want to be a master of this. I want to understand how my body and my joints and all these things work with the different cues and different constraints. And part of it, I picked up a little bit from swimming. As I was a terrible swimmer growing up. I mean, terrible. Like, the warm-up killed me when I was like, I remember 8. Like, oh, this is the warm-up, and all the other kids are flying ahead, and I'm just like dying, like choking on water and stuff. And actually, I like swimming now. I've learned from some really good coaches. I'm still not great, but I'm better than I used to be. And I remember watching swim coaches, and they would have aerobic days. And this was at Cal, and they were a lot more progressive of a program, like a lot more just, I think, like lower volume, and they did things a lot more skillfully. And I think this was on both the men and the women, is their aerobic days were very technical. They brought a lot of gear. They do like fins and paddles. And it's like, we're doing aerobic, and it's a long, slow day, but there's a lot of ways to experience that and a lot of ways to experience technique. Because if you just go swim however many 1,000 yards and it's all the same, that's,
and your mind's not in it. You're not focused on yeah.
Exactly. And even I was reading something. This is a slight tangent. I will get back because I want to get back to the gentle plus strength quote that you had. I love that. It was Mary T. Meager was the butterfly queen of the early 80s, I want to say. And there was an article on her, and it was like 2 things she had said she was going to do to improve. And 1 was never be late to practice, and 2 was treat every turn like it's the Olympic final. I think that's so cool in swimming, because swimming can be a slog, but you have the out of a wall. You know, you swim so far and then, it's a wall. It's something interesting. It's like a mini parkour.
Yeah, it is.
Treat
Pop
that
away.
thing. Yeah, like it's the Olympics, all of a sudden you reinvigorate the whole rest of it. But then you can also build on that technique. And so Yeah, I've come to really enjoy lower intensity, but what can I wring out of this lower intensity? Like, how can I treat this
Yeah.
a beautiful learning experience?
And it's funny that you mentioned swimming because I love that as well. I've signed up to my first triathlon, which is in 2 weeks. I signed up like at the start in like March,
Yeah.
and it's only a 400-meter swim. It's like a mini triathlon. But I've been to the swimming baths every single week, and just training for 400 meters, which is like if it was like a Ironman, you're training for a mile, it's just a slog. But it allows me to just do these like 100-meter sets, 150-meter sets, and focus on that. And I got fins, and I got the pool boys and the things, and even the middle snorkel. The middle snorkel, because like you said, for me, I'm the same. Like the warm up would kill me.
Mhm.
Doing just 100 meters would kill me in the beginning, but I put on the middle snorkel, and I can do
So
200
much
foot.
better.
It's so much better because I don't have to worry about the breathing, but I can get the reps in on my upper body and my actual develop the capillaries on the muscles that need to be developed in order to do that, and then I can do laps without it. Um, just while you mentioned that, because I'm just curious, really curious when I chat to people, because there's some really good YouTube swimming content lately, and I need to actually hire a swim coach and have some one-on-one lessons because I think it could really help me improve that way. But there's one video I watched that was so helpful from I think it's called Effortless Swimming, some Australian guy, and he breaks down 100-meter time, what your issues are at different 100-meter paces. And I know this might be a bit of a tangent for your viewers, but I just love to, while I'm into swimming, and you talked about swimming too,
Sure.
I can swim comfortably about 2 minutes per 100 meters is like my comfortable pace. And I think for my triathlon, I reckon I'll get about 7 to 8 minutes for 400 meters.
Yeah.
Are you like 130 or there, or
I don't even. This is
yeah.
where I'm at, Tim. I will swim when my kids are playing in the pool for swim lessons. I will swim 25 and need to rest, and then swim another 20.
Yeah, okay, so you're experimenting with it and playing with it. Yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
pure play. Like if I was to time, I mean, gosh, I mean, it probably would be somewhere where you're at plus, maybe add 20 seconds to that. It was,
Okay.
yeah,
I was just curious how deep you've gone with it. But then on the play side, if you do have fins on, there's a swim. My favorite swim technique, but it's tiring, is 360 swimming with fit. If you ever have fins on, you go front stroke and then turn to your back. And I can't do it because I'll
mm.
pull the thing.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
But you can just spin, and there's a really nice pull
yes,
as you go from front stroke to back stroke. It's like a really nice like feeling that happens when you turn over and then you come through. So just something to play with if you're ever out with the fins.
yeah. That's what yeah. When I swim, it's just all play. Like one of the things I enjoy, and with the breathing, it's 100% same thing. Like if I'm pool boy, snorkel, like snorkel especially, I'm money. I could
Yeah,
swim. I would not get even half as tired with that snorkel. And
yeah,
the great thing that kills me. So one thing I was playing with when I was doing those 25s, that's what I always do, is just how can I make it feel good? Is I did a amplify the error. So basically, how can I breathe badly? Like
mm,
I'll swim 10 yards breathing very poorly, head way too far, like that person whose head is way too
yeah,
far
yeah,
out or something, or you know, and then I'll say, okay, now go normal. And I'll notice what my body wants to do. And it's still not good, but I was like, I think this is more what you should do. It's almost like that transition that teaches you something. And so
yeah.
that thing that it would normally be a struggle, if I can just kind of frame it up so I can notice what my body wants to do and kind of go with it. That
I
tends
like
to be,
that.
or like swimming with fists. Like I'll swim with fists. And it sucks, and you have to kind of use your forearm to hold water, and I'm like,
Mm,
I know I'm bad anyways, but then when I open up my hands, it's like, ooh, like this is really going. Or the best is my feet. I'm a high jumper, and so my feet are very stiff-ish,
mm.
and they are kind of more stuck.
Yeah, you
I
can't.
can't plantar flex very far.
Yeah, me same from parkour. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll swim with my feet intentionally dorsiflexed at 90, like anywhere. But then when I like let them go and swim, they turn into flippers so much my feet will cramp up
Oh,
because it's like somewhere in my body realized how much you actually have to relax, and then they relax so much like my feet cramp. I'm like, but I'm like, but this is what good swimmers feel like. I know it. So if I was gonna keep at this, I would just keep doing it.
no, I think I love that. I think that's like I was thinking the Brazilian soccer players who playing with the tennis ball, and they get really good with this little tennis ball. You give them
Oh,
a
yeah.
big ball, well, it's easy, right? Like,
Oh, yes,
how can
yes.
you make it slightly harder so then you actually can appreciate just the normal ability? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
I wanted to go quickly to the what you mentioned. What was that quote again? You said gentle. What was
Is
that?
gentleness is the concomitant to strength.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. So I was thinking about the railing example you gave, and
Hmm.
so in plyometrics, it's very common. in good plyos, you start with at least teaching as a possible constraint a silent landing, like
Yeah.
learn to land silently. Now, that's not the only way. I mean, there's going to be a lot of motions in sport where you're not silent and you do make noise, and even
Is that in the literal the intermediary step, or is that when they land afterwards? Was
so
literally
it's
they
if you're doing like a drop, like a depth jump, like you jumped off a box and you hit,
and you're
and
bouncing up, or you're just stopping?
either,
Okay, and you
yeah.
still want to be silent in that
Yeah,
as
I mean, at
possible.
least as a learning tool to say,
Yeah,
"Hey, show me that you can be silent."
yeah.
And then when you actually jump, you'll be, there's gonna be a
He's
little.
gonna say it's yeah, yeah, it's gonna be some noise.
And I actually got so idealistic. No, I mean, I don't coach. I don't say every jump should be silent, but I realized in my own training, I probably got so idealistic towards at least smoothness that, and so idealistic against like hammering the ground in my own plyos. Now I will hammer the ground on a few just to experience that, just
Yep,
to be like, all right, that's what that is. And that's
yep,
cool. And this is what I can get from it. And then I'll do some silent ones. But I was going to say with the silent, or at least that precision, that does it for you. If it's a rail or something, you don't even have to say be silent, or even like a rock, like a rock that's a little off. Like
yep,
you just have to be precise. And what a good plyometric base to have athletes do, yeah, rails or slightly uneven objects and just running over them versus, I mean, so often it's just in tradition, a lot of it's just hammer the ground on this flat surface. And then where's the gentle as the base of eventual power? Because you can
yeah.
eventually feed a lot of power into it. But yeah,
Mm.
I really like that quote and that idea with the railing piece.
That's I mean that's good for it, and this is like what Weck always talks about is it's both sides utilized, right? It's not one or the other. It's like you've always got to do this. It's like okay, this is really good. So what would be the absolute opposite of this that I could also train, and that's going to give me the strongest middle? Like, if you're putting a tent up and you want to make it as strong as possible, you put the tent poles as far apart as possible,
Mm,
right? So you need it's both ends. So it's we can how can we apply this to so many things? So you want the perfectly set up, pristine, like easy landing, and then you want the like uncomfortable. What's going to make
yeah.
challenge you a little bit more? What's going to? There's a parkour guy who trained barefoot for 1 month, right, in Cambridge, Philip Doyle. He progressed when he came out of that month and put shoes back on. He'd progressed faster than anyone had ever probably progressed because he trained for 1 month barefoot. He made that commitment. Like I love shoes. I've got Hokas. I also go out barefoot. Like I do both. I love both. It's like both sides utilized. Like we're so used to this red versus blue, like especially in America and especially in the West, is like
Yeah.
it's this sport versus this, or it's this person versus this, and it's like no, I like we can appreciate all sides, and there's value in all sides, and there's knowledge and there's yeah wisdom in all sides.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get traction, red versus blue. It's hard to get traction unless you can go where a fight is. There's an, these, they're right. This is right. And this is wrong versus,
Yeah,
like you said, the tent will
yeah,
experience both of those things. You experience, landing, experience the barefoot. Even I saw you, there's a video you did where you did barefoot and then with like carbon shoes. And it's like,
yeah,
you should experience both of those things. Experience having a serious spring shooting you forward or
yep,
something like that, and experience what it's like to go barefoot. And I think a lot of runners do that by nature. Like the people who are running in the super spikes probably warm up or cool down on some level just barefoot.
yep,
Barefoot on strides on grass is pretty popular, but like
yeah.
just to give yourself both sides of an equation. And that's the same reason that I think I talk about the error of hammering the ground, but I'm like, well, maybe you should hammer the ground just to see what it's like every now and then. You
Yeah,
gotta like,
well, there's a guy on Instagram. Do you know this guy? And he like puts like a fixed rope or cord or something around, and he'll like like is say it's like the squat rack, and he'll put it around his ankle, and he'll just kick into this fixed cord, so there's no elasticity to it. It just jolts the joint over and over, and I can see, and just like you said, hammer the ground. Like there's something in training the body to take impact, but there's also something in training to be perfectly precise, and there's something in both of those. Yeah.
and actually just in infusing that the workout I did, I was like, I can feel in the hammer the ground the power needed to do the thing, but I need
Mm.
to loop it into precision to make it, maximize it,
Yeah.
and that element.
Weck has a phrase, martial intent, like giving things martial intent, like actually like giving it everything, like you're gonna, and you need to have both. You need to have the and there's so much. It's the yin and the yang, as you kind of said at the start, right? And it's even like the pulses, the training, yeah, like they don't work if you're just swinging around. You know, you've got to like be precise about the angle that you throw them at to get them to work. And
Yeah,
um,
exactly. And that's the thing I think with a pulsar or even any tool that you would have in your hand is it offers a precision target for the upper body to
mm,
operate on versus a lot of times it's you're just coached into do this with your arm. But then, yeah, where I've had fun coming off of that is how can I get my upper body to just take that on without having the tool necessarily? Like, how can I now feel this in what my torso's doing? Or how can I recognize good upper body action because I had that precision, in whatever tool it was.
yeah, and obviously rope flow is like
Yeah,
phenomenal for
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen pulsers clean up people, like people whose arms are all over the place, just clean it up like
Wow. Wow,
instantly.
they're still not getting there. I still don't think there's the flowers for how good these are. And I think a lot of people get into rope flow and they say, should I get pulses because they like Weck and they kind of trust his work. And I'm like, unless you like are a semi good level runner, I don't see too. I mean, if you are really passionate about running then I'd say try it. But if you're not into running that much, then there's not too much, or like acceleration or sprint work in some form. But for sprinters, it's phenomenal, right? Like I think it's great for acceleration and even
Yeah.
running in the hills.
Yeah, I noticed David, like you had a video doing it on the steps. And I
Yeah.
think for things that have a little more lateral translation and that need to gather, like acceleration, you're a little bit more side to side, head over foot and when you come up right, you're still doing it, but it's a little bit less. Um, but like that anything where you need to gather in time and need something outside of yourself, like that,
Mm.
it's kind of like I don't know, so a lot of times I think we overthink it too. Like it gives you that kind of feedback that
Yeah.
like a music, it's almost like it's like its own little beat and it
It's
helps that.
rhythm. Yeah. And like I think what you said there, it helps you not overthink it. And that's what I love. And I think so many people, the people that don't get David's work, they don't see that value in that is like it's the tool that you play with and the body just downloads the skill by proxy of playing with the tool. You don't have to overthink it as long as over time you develop like pulses. When you give people pulses for the first time, they're pretty uncoordinated, but by the third session, they kind of get what's happening and they angle it right and everything like that. Rope flow generally first time people can have an experience of like, whoa, I can feel what this is doing for my movement and all sorts. So yeah, I think the fact that he's come up with simple tools, your body's highly intelligent
Yeah.
and we're intelligently minded. How can we create tools to help our body develop and progress? And I think that's what David's done with the pulses and the rope.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was watching the video. I think David took a rear view of you running up the stairs with and without the pulsar.
Mm,
And it's interesting because without the pulsar, your arms were a lot like looser and longer behind you. But as soon as you had it, the feedback loop got tighter on the arm. Like
yeah.
it connected it into the stride. And yeah, I have athletes who I have used them a lot who have like kind of coordination hangups between the upper and lower half.
Mm,
But if you're athletes who are good, I'm like, okay, well, you're good, so now you should be able to absorb it in there. But I'm also been interested in yeah. Let's talk about rope flow because I don't want to finish this conversation without. I know that's a huge part of your movement
yeah.
life and what you do. And I know that for me, I think the thing that is always intriguing is, well, how does it fit to gait? Because I'll do my off days, I'll do some rope flow, like dragon roll. That's I've become more of a dragon roll, like and I've tried. I just watched some videos of yours on how to move past it, but like doing that and then running and just noticing connections, things like that. I find it very interesting. Tell me a little bit. Sorry, I don't want
It's okay.
to talk about like I'm such a beginner in this.
I want to hear about your journey with it. But yeah, what's the
Yeah, tell me about how
what's
did you
your
get into
take?
rope flow, and then how do you view it as, I guess one just for a tool of itself, and then two, how it can help us benefit with other skills we do.
Yeah. So for me, my journey was around the time I was doing functional patterns, and then I got a message from Naudi saying I can't do it anymore. I was experimenting with functional patterns with some other stuff. Long story short, but I was not allowed to train with their coach anymore. So I just discovered Weck like a week before that moment on Instagram, and I was watching his stuff, and I saw him with the pulses, and I was like, "Who's this strange dude?" But I don't really want to judge. I like characters like David when I see them come up, and this guy's interesting. And I saw they had a course in San Diego, and from my last bit, I had a vegan business. I ended up long story short, again, I moved out of the business. I sold my shares. I got a bit of money from that. And I was investing the money in things that I'm curious about to find the next chapter of my life. I did a bushcraft course. I did a mountaineering course. And the last bit of money I had when this happened I was investing into functional patterns at the time. That happened. I said, well, let me go to San Diego and see David and see what this is all about. So I went for the pulsers. And then within 5 minutes, like of picking up the rope as part of the class, you have to do the rope flow. I did that and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is incredible. Like we're just feeling the coordination between the left and the right side of our body. The right and left never really talk to each other. I can move my right and my left completely disconnected. We're trained in so many sports to be one side dominant and control things on one side. The rope was like, oh, it's evening it out. And these two are in communication that they have to be in harmony. They have to move together. Otherwise the rope hits me. Then you learn the dragon roll and you're like, wow, this is like, I'm rotating the ribs. I haven't trained this that much. You can get thousands of reps in a short space of time, shifting the body weight, from parkour, I could feel in my body that I'm balanced and I want to be able to land and move with control. Again, with parkour, sometimes say you're doing a running jump and you've got a limited run up, there's a wall behind you. You can't it's not like long jump where you can have as long as you want. You need to get up to speed as quickly as possible. So like, another thing I experienced from rope flow was like, oh, when I can shift my head from foot to foot, I can drive a lot more precisely and get a lot more speed out of my run up here. And so, yeah, within 5 minutes of rope flow, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I came home. I spoke to Chris Chamberlain. Big up Chris Chamberlain, who's one of his main coaches. He said he did about 40 hours in the first month and just got obsessed with it. And that's what I did. I went home. I was at David Lloyd Gym. I had the mirror. I was the weirdo in the gym in front of the mirror with the rope flow just going, coming up with different patterns and exploring different things. And then I think I was just so amazed by it. There's so many different things it does, but one of the things that was nice was it gave me like a practice that was more gentle in the aspect of like, it's not huge weights. It's not, there's no danger. You're not like bouncing constantly on your feet or bounding around. So even when you have like tweaks and niggles and injuries, I could still do it. I had a bad ankle at the time that was chronic for like 5-7 years. It's a lot better now, thankfully. But I could do that and not worry about the ankle was fine throughout all this practice. And I just became obsessed with it and it just blew me away. It was like, and the aspect of actually working your mind when you train as well, because you come away and your brain can be a bit tired sometimes, right? When you're learning a new pattern and you have to engage your brain. So I did all that and I was just like, this is phenomenal. And so I wanted to teach that. And so within 6 months of that, I was making YouTube videos about it and sharing it with other people. And that was 2020 at that point. And David gave me his blessing. And that's when I founded my current business is Way of the Rope, which is a rope flow education company. Basically, I sell ropes and courses on how to do rope flow because it's so simple that you have this piece of rope and yet it's so universal. Like, it's for anyone that has a spine and 2 arms. It's useful for, right? Even people with 1 arm. David's taught people like swimmers that are in the Paralympics with 1 arm, and they can still have a gripper with the other arm, and it helps them recruit that side of the body in a way that they've never been able to engage. And so I've taught people as old as 91 how to drag and roll up to like 8-year-old children, 7-year-old, my niece. And for physical development for children, for coordination, it's amazing. There's the thumbs up again. For older people, just to get them with that rhythm, you can hold it in one hand on one side and just bounce up and down and feel the tempo of the rope guiding your body through the movements. There's so many, and it's now this year it's really finally starting to take off. You've got Lawrence Van Lingen, who's a big proponent of it. You've got Ensema, who's with Mark Bell on his podcast, this kind of co-host, but I think he's doing his own thing. Big up Ensema. Josh from Strength Side has been promoting it. Juji Mufu, you've got all these big guys promoting rope flow now. I don't know, track coaches are almost maybe the last to adopt rope flow. I don't know if you've seen it there yet, but I feel like I thought athletes would be the first to adopt this, and it seemed like some athletes are slow to take it up, and it's more like the breathwork yoga crowd, and slowly like the more bodybuilding crowd are starting to get on it now.
Yeah, that's where, to me, I guess I asked the question specifically in the sense that and you mentioned it all the way in the beginning of the podcast, Tim, with like competition and versus maybe just moving for the sake of moving.
Yeah.
And in my own work with it, I see you have videos too. It's like you have people from probably age in their 20s all the way up to 70s and doing that. And just from a lifetime movement tool that's not necessarily what we think of as fitness, but it's exploration, it's rhythmic. You can constantly be learning something new in a way that you wouldn't. Or I mean, like I mentioned with running, I can learn. I like the other day I learned something about how my pinky toe works, but that's not exciting to 99.99% of the population. And I understand that versus, hey, I learned this actual tangible new move in rope flow. And so I can see that. And just as I've done it too, you mentioned the gentleness and doing that when you had an injury. And to your point of, and I mentioned it as well, like just being easier and gentler and that gentleness on the low intensity days.
Mm.
I find for me, if I'm doing like a tempo running workout, I still find it hard to be good to myself on those days. I still want to just, I still want to run certain times to get volumes and
Yeah.
that. And I find just supersetting running with some rope flow, keeping my heart rate up, it's a way of being good to myself, but also like the twisting, the manipulation of the hands. And you mentioned Chris Chamberlain, and I know
Mm.
Chris has talked about working construction. And when people stop using hammers and start using nail guns, they start picking up more injuries. And so I just think about it's woven into our DNA to use tools and to use our hands and to use that dexterity. And so it strikes me that from a basic human level, it just resonates so well. And I think for athletes, it is, if there's one thing I've thought about with athletes in track, it's more how I feel like we have forgotten jump roping as a track community. We're
Mm.
actually jumping over it because everything is plyos now that's
Yeah.
categorized. And plyos are great, but the original plyo in so many ways was a jump rope
Yeah,
or a
100%.
part of
Yeah.
it.
That's the zone 2 player. That's like
Yeah, exactly. And like I think about I use the rope, like for example, athletes who struggle with getting their arms behind them in a bound to like load up because they just don't have that connection. A rope is a
Mm.
really, really good tool for that. And a jump rope is too. Just do reverse backwards jump roping.
Mm.
But yet we forgot that it's almost like because we've taken and sectioned off little pieces of the training equation so much, and I think also a lack of physical education that we've forgotten just how cool a rope is. I just had an athlete the other day, a track athlete, high jumper, who looks way better in a lot of perspectives, not all sprinting, but jump roping every step. I saw Mahucic, the world record holder in high jump. There's videos of her jump roping. It's like a Franz Bosch thing too. I know he's, jumping rope, and there is some certain hangups. You will never be able to sprint your fastest doing that for a variety of reasons. But for this athlete recently, just the timing he gets going over the rope, he just looks so much more bouncy and
So they're like bounding down with a rope each step.
yeah,
So like,
every step. Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Do you
that
do
sounds
any of that with
perfect.
the rope? Well, I guess with the rope flow, usually it's to the side, right? Like you don't jump over it as much.
Yeah, I did a bit where I had one in each hand and I was like bounding or like yeah, I do more like step ups on like a box, and I'll step up with the rope every step and step back.
Yeah.
And I find that really, and that, I've posted that on Instagram a few times and people seem to connect with that. And I think that's one of my main with the rope. But I can completely see how bounding with a jump rope would give people like, because it gives you that like, it makes you punch into it, right? It's the same with the pulses. Like you have to whip, boom, like to
There's
get
a
it down.
timing. It's just a
Yeah.
coordination and timing. It challenges that timing piece. And I
And
find a
connects
lot.
the arms and the legs, like you said earlier, like connecting the arms.
Yeah, a lot of high jumpers who are real springy, they aren't necessarily fast, partly because they just don't connect their arms explosively, and it at least gives like a little timing, like a little bit of that. It's similar to the pulsar, yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, something I like that I do feel like is universal for athletes, like you mentioned, you said the precision with the rails, and then if you put can you describe that quickly? You put the rope on your chest, and you're like making a figure eight with it or
I can probably
something like that. Yeah,
demonstrate it.
I'll have to link a video to this too, or if there's a YouTube people can find for something.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to lose the headphones, but I'll just demonstrate it real quick. You can probably
Okay.
hear me if I talk. But it's just getting the spine to mobilize.
Yeah, I can annotate too. I
If I do
can describe what Tim's doing here. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So hands move around a little bit around the chest, but you're just looping a figure eight in front and behind yourself. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I think that basic skill. And then like getting lunges into it as well. Now you're in rope flow mode, Tim. I love it.
There we go. We're back. Yeah. So you can kind of see that figure eight and that weight shift. And you see the marathon world record holder, rest in peace, Kelvin Kiptum, died at 23 last year. But his technique compared to the older guy who was the record holder before. Very different techniques. Very different techniques. One's bouncy, and then Kelvin had much more fluidity. And like before he was world record holder, people are criticizing his technique, saying this is wasted energy side to side. And then he gets the world record, and you're like, okay, maybe there's something to it. You look at Usain Bolt. These are Usain Bolt. There's a clip of him. I'm sure you might have even referenced it before, but Michael Johnson saying he's wasting energy. He's leaking.
Yes.
If he kept his shoulders level and ran like that, he'd be faster. And it's like, well, he's got the world record. Maybe it's the other way around. And then you look at Gout now, another guy, man, a lot of rotation
Oh,
going on.
tons. Yeah, from the top down, an
Yeah.
immense amount of rotation. And that's where I think too, with like a lot of that stuff, it's like the tent pole, like you said, that analogy where I think athletes should experience, and Kathy Sierra says it really well, amplify the error and then amplify the benefit. And the error is run and don't move your spine at all. Just keep yourself still. And then the benefit is do something that's really exaggerated, draw out, like that rope exercise you did. Or I like doing things with a medicine ball figure eights and holding a medicine ball across your chest.
Yeah.
Big figure eights and lateral bound type action. And so now you know the extremes. And now you can find something that just fits like a glove, or you're using it. Precision, gentleness is meeting that intensity. Maybe you could even hammer the ground for a few steps if you wanted to in there. And then finding that ultimate meeting place. So, Tim, man, if people, I know it's hard on I know we have video here, but like for people listening, if you want to see more about rope flow, how you're, like where to start, like what a good flow to start is. And maybe I'll just ask you this in closing too, is what are some moves, like in addition to what you mentioned, like maybe the names of the moves that people who are starting in rope flow just generally want to get a feel for it?
I mean, this is like the 80-20 rule. Like 80% of the value is in 20% of the practice. Like if you just do underhand figure of eight, overhand figure eight, and dragon roll, like that's 80% of the value in like just a fraction of it. Because there's like 60, 100, maybe 100 patterns or more. There's tangents of different patterns and things that can be precise. Like there's movements for tennis and for golf and things like that you can do precisely, but just they all stem from the three basics of overhand, underhand, and dragon roll. And there's plenty of stuff on YouTube if you search for that. I've got a video on YouTube where it's 20 minutes and I take my friend through, he's a parkour guy, Jason Paul. I take him through those three patterns, and people seem to really like that because they're watching a student learn while they're learning, and he asks good questions as a student. So that would be, if you have you can use it with a skipping rope. You could almost use a towel or a belt even. Up until dragon roll, you could use a resistance band. You could just get a thick resistance band, hold it at your spine.
Yeah, one of those great big green ones or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Or stretch with,
and just go on YouTube, search my channel is Tim's Gym, or if you search Way of the Rope, it should come up. But you can search rope flow tutorial, Big 8 basics, beginners, anything like that. Stuff should come up. But that's what I recommend. And just download that figure eight, because just like you said, it's good to know stiff and neutral, and it's good to know ultimate expression of infinity, and the truth or the optimum will be somewhere in the middle, between 20 and 80% of that, somewhere down the middle. That would be my recommendation for people.
Awesome. Well, sounds good. Well, hey, thank you so much, Tim, for that. Like just with like the movement, rope ideas, and the gentleness as well in that quote. I'm definitely going to keep that in mind.
No problem.
I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
My pleasure. Can we finish with a quick round of World Championships coming up this year? Who's taking what?
Yeah. I mean, for what?
For athletics.
Oh yeah.
Anything. I mean, is Kerr in the high jumps not doing so well? Is it Kerr or Bar? Are you following the Diamond League? Have you?
I tell you what, I am. My life is just like.
Oh, you got 3 kids, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I watch periodically. For someone who I would say when I was coaching, like at a college track, before that, I knew everything. Knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah,
it's funny. I think simply because high jump this year, you don't have that guy at 240. You have. I follow a little bit. Mahuchich, I think she had a little better year last year. So nobody's like. I think until somebody is like up there, unfortunately, it's
not stunning. Yeah,
high jump fan. Am I a real track?
If you're a pole vaulter, you'd be following Mondo Duplantis, wouldn't you? Like he's getting world record after world record.
isn't that such an expression of parkour plus track, though? Some people have actually talked about that being its own event sometimes, like almost apart from track. Because
Yeah, it's so unique. It's much more of a skill. Well, I mean, there's obviously a skill in all levels, but it's a very unique skill. But then at the same time, it's just he's a better sprinter than the rest, right? Like
he's fast. Yes.
yeah. Even watching him versus that was what excited me actually more than normal track and athletics was him versus Warholm at
Yeah.
100 meters because then you're posing questions, right? Like uh, Warholm versus Shakari Richardson at 100, or so, these ideas. I was like, oh, I hope they do more of this, and they kind of stopped. I hope they do more of those kind of like this question, this athlete versus this athlete at this. Like these are really much more intriguing. But for the 100 meters, I don't know if you followed, but it looks like Kashane Thompson. Thomas Thompson, not sure, is the huge favorite, and but then Oblique Seville just ran amazingly last weekend, and yeah, and Noah Lyles beat Bednarek, but then Noah didn't look so good against Seville, and
Yeah, I think, the thing is, I think with that, I have been following the 100. I find it interesting because with Jefferson, like shorter athlete, and her stride's a little bit different than a lot of, prototypical. So I find that.
the female American that's just absolutely flying, like
Yes,
yeah.
she is blazing, and so is Oblique Seville. Actually, he doesn't look like he's like the polar opposite how he runs, how he looks compared to Noah Lyles, and so a lot of it is I like watching technique once people start to get into these rare errors of time, like
Yeah.
sub 990, and how is this guy running I mean, again, there's a ton of similarities. There's more similarities than differences, but I really enjoy the differences with it all. But I was going to say with Mondo, just quickly, tools, things you hold, how he runs with a pole vaulter and how a pole vaulter runs carrying a tool. And you talk about head over foot and and everything needed to manipulate that pole as it goes down the runway. It's slowly dropping, rhythm change. It's like it's the epitome really of like a lot of pieces in motion at the same time, and there's like a momentum build. And there's
It's like a
pieces.
polyrhythm, right? Because you've got the one fall of that. You've got every two steps as a different. Yeah, it's like so many things happening at once. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think honestly, if hurdling is a really good base for track athletes like parkour, but even pole vaulting and rhythm and holding a tool and it's dropping and you're working momentum and there's precision. How Mondo runs, there's pieces of that show up in his running that I almost wonder if he's faster, like being a pole vaulter and then running, than if he just grew up doing the 100 and just doing all the traditional stuff. I actually
Yeah.
think about that a little bit because it's an interesting concept. So, yeah, maybe pole. I'd love to see you pole vault, Tim. In the midst of all your movement activities.
And if I had like 5 lifetimes, I might choose that in one of them. Like, there's so many different things I wanted to do, but yeah, it's it's cool to watch that. But I wish he had some more competition, to be honest.
Yeah, that thing where they cross the river, that's up in your neck of the woods, or that's Netherlands. Have you seen that, the big post sticking out of the river?
Yeah, Stora went and did that. I think that was pretty cool.
Oh,
Yeah, stuff like that's really cool.
so good. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, one of us needs to do that one of these days. So, well, thank you so much, Tim. Hey, it was awesome talking to you, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. And yeah, really appreciate you taking the time. Give me a call and big up everyone that listened to this. Lots of love to everyone. Yeah.